Hi, my name's Lindy and welcome to this channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk. My email is info@lindycowling.co.uk. The email address would be the one to use if you are wishing to book some kind of session with me. Bear in mind that I am very booked up at the moment and you will have to wait until May now to get in. So I'm booking about 6 weeks ahead. That may change and it may be less than that in a few months' time, or it might even be a slightly longer wait. So factor that in when you're making a session booking. So I'm going to laugh as I start this video because every single video, pretty much every video I've brought out in the last 5 years, I always start off with the same spiel. I always do my website address, I always do my email address, and then I always launch into a title, which I have an idea of the title literally just a few minutes before I get on here. But this is the first time in 5 years that I don't have the title before I get on here. So obviously when I put the video out, it will be put out with a name on it, but the name will come to me probably while I'm shooting this video, or when I have actually shot the video, it will come to me after. So that's a first, which indicates to me this video will be slightly different. I do get the impression that this is going to be some kind of energy transmission. So I'm going to call it, see the name's coming to me now. I'm going to call it, even though we're in the last week of March technically, I'm going to call it April Energy Transmission. So I know we do have a week of March to go, but you know, some people will see it before then, you know, in the build up. Some people will see it after then. Some people will see it, you know, April, May, June, doesn't really matter. But it's an energy transmission. Now, it's true to say that in some ways, all the videos I put out really are some form of energy transmission, but this is what I'm drawn to call this one, which means it will be slightly different. So it will be slightly different, the frequency it's coming from, because that's what the video is all going to be about. So as you know, if you are someone that has been watching this channel for nearly over 5 years now, you will know that I work very spontaneously, very much from the heart. It's not pre-planned. It's very rarely read from anything that I've written down. Sometimes it is, but very rarely. It's usually spontaneous, usually from the heart, usually, in some ways I could say channeled from the heart. It's usually kind of from that kind of thing, and done very intuitively. So this one is an energy transmission all about the ever-changing frequencies that we are experiencing within ourselves. So as I launch in here, as I'm sure you know, whether you're new to this channel or not, you know, most of you watching this will be interested in some way in energy and the metaphysical, I guess, you know, in some ways the paranormal, in many ways how that affects our lives, including how we connect with people in forms of partnerships or sacred connections or relationships that also are awakening connections and ways of awakening you to your divinity and to your multidimensional self. So launching in here, how I'm going to start this is to say, so many of you will be aware that we, the planet we live on, and how we interact with that planet is all comprised of energy. And it's energy that sometimes from a linear perception and perspective would seem as if it is solid, but in fact it is moving. So the chair, the sofa, the bed, the cabinet, the walls, the house may seem as if they are solid and static, unless of course that you're in an earthquake or something, but in fact they're always moving and there's fluctuation of energy, and it is one's perception and setting, if you like, within that linear reality that makes it seem as if it's solid and not moving. So we are in a time at the moment where our, let's call it normal frequencies, just to explain it easier, are fluctuating significantly, and those frequencies overall, I'm going to say, are raising. Now, I'm saying overall because everybody is different, and some people's frequencies are raising differently to others. I don't know if you heard that noise off camera. That's why I think for a moment I just heard something fall down in the other room, which sometimes does happen when I'm working on camera in a particular energy wave band or on a particular frequency. So enough that noise got picked up by the microphone there, but something just fell down. So there are fluctuations in frequency, but overall the frequencies within people are raising, and of course it is been fluctuating wildly on the planet for some time, but absolutely unprecedented now in terms of the Schumann resonance on the planet, where it's been going absolutely crazy, like higher, I think, than it's ever been before, and then dipping a bit, then going crazy again, and then settling a bit, stabilizing a bit. So it's all over the place, and we've got loads and loads going on. Not just that, but you know, the effect that has on us as beings connected with the planet we're on. If we're talking all in energy and vibration and consciousness, how that planet affects us, how we affect it. So the frequencies at the moment, they are absolutely extraordinary, and wherever you are at in your own personal evolution and development and frequency will depend on whether you are fluctuating, so this is happening, or whether you are stabilizing within a frequency that is different to your normal frequency, or I could say higher than your normal frequency. Now, if you think about what frequency is, where I said everything is vibration, energy, so it's moving energy, different speeds, how we align with those particular energies depends on what wave band or frequency we are tuned to within us as consciousness. So an easy way of describing it is like, say there were 12 different radio shows. So think of it as a radio, and there are 12 different radio shows, and say most of your life you're tuned just to Radio 1, or most of your life you're tuned to Radio 4 or Radio 2, and that would be your linear frequency radio tuning. You are now coming to a point of your evolution where you can tune to Radio 1, Radio 2, Radio 3, Radio 4, Radio 5, Radio 6, Radio 7. You might tune to Radio 6 or 7, then you might bounce down to Radio 1 or 2, then you might fluctuate a bit, then you might have, let's say, attunements to 3 or 4 bandwidths within your own consciousness, and then that might settle a bit, and then it might change and go up or shift again. Which means that you are receiving more input from your own consciousness and from the outer collective consciousness, and gamma related and galactic related and off planet related, all happening internally inside yourselves. You are receiving more input. Now, say somebody is tuned in their frequency to Radio 1, and say that the input coming in is 12 radio stations, 12 radio stations of input. Somebody tuned in their own consciousness and awareness and perception and evolution that is tuned to Radio 1 will only get Radio 1, even though there's 11 more stations coming in. As their consciousness fluctuates, change, shifts, as a bombardment of gamma or galactic sun or plasma or higher forms of consciousness stimulations come in through those wave bands. Somebody attuned to radio 1 may suddenly, who haven't heard the other 11 stations as well, be hearing radio 2 or radio 3 or 4 as well. So more input coming in, and they can be attuned to these. And if you say to me what's within those inputs, what's within those other radio wave bands, if you like, within those other radio wave bands are not just the entire recorded history of the soul, the unique soul's experience, or that's the unique spirit's experience. There are aspects of the collective experience, ancestral experience, bloodline experience, but there are also the multidimensional wave bands of consciousness for that individual. All the easiest way to put it is recorded history, everything that's going on within them as an expression of consciousness, on planet, off planet, all times, all realities, all at the same time, is that they can have an awareness of some of these, and they can actually, it's not that it wasn't always there, but they have an awareness of it. They kind of wake up to it, so they become more of who they thought they were. They become more unified. They realize they are not separate from the totality of who they are, and they are not separate from their vast potentiality or divinity. So they are greater, more than they were before, because they have an awareness of the radio stations that they haven't had an awareness of before. So I'm not talking about real radio stations. It's my way of explaining multiple frequencies that comprise, and I'm going to say an individual, so you understand I'm talking to you, an individual's unified consciousness. So at the times we're living at the moment, there are outside stimulations to this coming from off planet, but also from the planet, that are stimulating, and there are the people on planet that are, I'm going to call it leading the way. I don't mean in a competitive way, I mean leading the way as becoming masters or embodiments of more radio stations or more frequencies that are themselves putting out a transmission, an energy transmission, so that others align with that radio frequency or radio transmission, that in turn encourages them to become more unified and come onto line to who they are and the multiple frequencies and transmissions. And if you were to say to me what else is within this, well, some of those energy bands and transmissions may be picking up on, let's say, inter and intra-dimensional civilizations that are connected with this planet, or actually on this planet, or within this planet, or hidden in and around this planet. Some are off planet. You are coming on frequency and in transmission and in alignment with aspects of you as a multidimensional unified consciousness that has been, you've been unaware of, but the easy way to describe it is most people on this planet are partially got star seed, if you like, memory within their consciousness, being off-planet memory within their consciousness as well. So a part of that, they might come online for them, and they'd be much more aware of that. And some people can get totally into that wave band, totally into that frequency, totally into that radio station, and they might be totally into that for a number of years or for the rest of their lives. Somebody else might get totally into the wave band of the elemental kingdom, fairies, that side of it. You know, another person will get totally into but angelic frequencies, angelic radio station. All these radio stations are running simultaneously, and it just depends on where one is at in their evolution and consciousness, if they want to fully align and embody that frequency, or if they want to be attuning to the multiple different aspects of themselves and their unlimited capacity to become fully conscious within, let's say, the wave band of the soul or soul family or expression of them as soul or essence or spirit has within their current awareness of reality. So what I mean is, somebody might just align with angelic, somebody might align with extraterrestrial, somebody might align with elemental energy, somebody else might align with something else, but the opportunity to align, I'm going to use 12 as an example. With all 12, I feel there are more than 12, but it feels right to say 12 at the moment. There are possibilities and the potential to align with all 12 ranges, spectrums of input, all 12 radio stations. And how can I put it? It's not like you're blasted out with all 12 radio stations at once, because that would quite, drive you loopy. You're not aware of all that input and noise of 12 radio stations going at the same time. But you can come online within yourself, within your own expanded consciousness, to all 12 radio stations, which, let's say you become the embodiment of, that you are using 24/7. So if you wanted to specifically work or align with a particular radio station in a particular way, you could. This is all happening within you, not outside of you, within you. But what you will find, or may find, like I say, will find if you continue with your evolution, is all 12 are available to you anyway. Now, I'm not saying there's just 12. I believe there's far more than 12. But it feels, my gut feeling, I'm being led to say here, 12 feels right for the time being. 12 is enough for most people to cope with for the time being. So what happens is, as you become the embodiment of it, you have all of the radio stations all sitting there within you anyway, and they're all switched on. And the only reason you're not hearing the noise from that, or let's say getting distracted by that, or is because as the embodiment of it, it's all part of who you are anyway. You're online to yourself. Why I feel I was drawn to call this a transmission is because, according to how many internal radio stations you are yourself personally aligned with inside yourself in your own consciousness, depends on the frequency and vibration that you are putting out. You are emanating from yourself 24/7. So if you're someone that is aligned with Radio 1, you're putting out Radio 1. If you're aligned with Radio 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're putting out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 24/7. It fluctuates at first, but once it destabilizes and you become the embodiment of that, I call it your resting state. I've often used that term on this channel. You're putting those out all the time. If you're someone that is aligning to 9, number 9, could I say ninth dimensional even, ninth radio station, ninth dimensional, you're putting that out 24/7. So you can be the embodiment of multiple radio stations and like I say, put out, if you're working particularly in a particular frequency, that's the one you're choosing particularly to work in. But you might be the expression of these other stations as well. And that's where I'm calling it transmission, because the frequency that you are and the vibration that you are is the one that you're putting out. Whether you can hear the sound of it or sense the sound of it or not, others can hear and sense the sound of it. And if you are someone that's putting out quite a few radio stations of your own consciousness, your own frequency. If you're emanating a frequency that is the embodiment of multiple radio stations, so it's not that each radio station is a different frequency, it's multiple frequencies within your frequency. So it's like a frequency that contains multiple frequencies within it. So, and you align with which one within it you want to align with, but you have a resting state frequency, shall we say, which can and keep rising. Some people will have a resting state frequency for the rest of their days, the rest of their life. That's down to a million different variations on that. Others, their resting state frequency will continue to rise over a period of time, and it changes. So within that resting state frequency are all these other frequencies and all these other radio stations, but let's call it the whole is embodied, unified within wherever that person's at. So you might be watching someone, say on a YouTube channel, who's completely aligning with a particular topic, and they might put out a Radio 1 frequency on that topic. You might watch somebody else that's talking on the same topic, and they put out Radio 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on that topic. You might be watching someone else on a YouTube channel or similar that puts out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 frequencies on that same topic. And people will watch and be attracted to the person or people that put out material on a particular frequency that stimulates something in them. It's either something that's got to be cleared in them, something that's got to be triggered in them, something that's got to be healed within them, something that kind of awakens them up to remember that particular embodiment of frequency within themselves. Something that stimulates their awakening somewhere down the line there. So the people that are making the videos put the material out from the frequency where they're at. Now, it is true that some people channel information through them, but what they're channeling through them is they're not the embodiment of the frequency they're channeling through. So what I mean is you can have someone that channels information through them and they kind of write it all down and then read it back, or memorize it and feed it back, and they've, how can I put it, they've aligned with an aspect of their own frequency to get the information through, but then they're not the embodiment of the frequency yet, or perhaps are never supposed to be, so they feed it back but not aligned with the frequency they've channeled, or it's a completely different frequency to them, not part of their higher self, not their soul group, something, another civilization, for example, and then they are reading the data from that civilization, and then they're feeding it out to the public, and they're putting it out where it's a mixture of the frequency that they've read from, which is why it's important to be reading from a pure frequency, if you like, because if you're reading from a distorted frequency, that frequency is being put out to the general population. So it's a mixture of what they're reading from, but also their own frequency of where they're at and their interpretation of it that's put out. So it is a transmission, it's a transmission, and people will align with or resonate with, or somewhere along that spectrum, as to where they're at and the kaleidoscope of sound and colour that a person making a transmission is putting out. If it's like a vast rainbow spectrum of sound and colour, people might align with particular parts of that spectrum because they're particular parts of the frequency for them that they are coming online to in their own consciousness. So again, you know, it's pretty amazing, because people are just starting to realise that they are a kaleidoscope of colour and sound and frequency and vibration, and that their own consciousness is well, it's everything, you know, and it's aligning with particular aspects that stimulate this kind of vast awakening, this kind of raising in consciousness, this kind of ascending, a raising of consciousness within the human body, learning their mastery, which is learning to not just navigate this stuff, but become the embodiment of it, so that it's 24/7. It's not, again, 20 minutes a week now and again. It's not only when you meditate. It's not only when you do a specific thing. It becomes when you're doing everything. You know, using the restroom, going for a walk, watching something on TV, going to the store, taking your children to school, going to work, driving your car. You know, you're it 24/7. It's not something that switches on or off any longer. You're it all the time. So you are receiving transmissions through multiple ways in your life. You know, what you are continuously watching, what you are continuously listening to, the environment that you're living in, the people you're around, they all put out a vibration, a frequency, and you know, some kind of transmission. But you can also alter, through going through your own awakening process and journey, the frequency and transmission that you are putting out. Now, the bigger picture here is not only does that stimulate others to clear their stuff, but stimulate others to awaken, stimulate others to raise their consciousness. It also, because everything is like a blueprint or like a template within people, and there are blueprints and templates out there in consciousness, you can actually stimulate people that will resonate with the frequency that you're the embodiment of, or the frequency that you are channeling, or frequencies that you are the embodiment of, or channeling, and it can stimulate them to imprint. This is all being done internally. Imprint in their consciousness on a frequency that aligns with the transmission or energy that you're putting out, so that they are rewriting, if you like, their own timeline, their own consciousness, getting their subconscious, unconscious energy, I guess, memories in a way. They won't always come into the brain. It won't be like at that, but on a cellular level. So cellular memories, body memories, energy body memories, and align them with, let's say, their highest potential, highest outcome, highest realities, expanded outcomes, expanded consciousness, expanded realities. So, using myself as an example here, because I don't want this video to be too long, I've always been, I'm going to say, extremely cautious in making sure that whenever I come on camera, I never come on camera for the sake of it. I don't come on here just to have a presence on YouTube, or just to get that attention. I don't need that presence on YouTube. I don't need that attention. I come on here only when it's something I feel really inspired to do, really inspired to talk about. I kind of feel like an impetus to do it. If that is absent, I don't come on here. If I'm not on here for weeks, sometimes I haven't been on here for months, I don't come on here to do that. I don't force it. I always, on my channel, and everybody's channels are different, mine is all about going through it as a human being, because we are human beings, even though we've got all this other consciousness as part of us, you know, galactic consciousness, plasma consciousness, cosmic consciousness, off-planet consciousness, angelic consciousness, the whole works, you know, the elemental consciousness, all of these different aspects of us. I only come on here when it feels like there's something that I'm really drawn to say or to share. And this channel is all about from the human path, walking it as a human being, that is also all of these other things as well. Because we are doing the human bit. We're doing it all as the human bit. I see the same story all over the world, over and over again, where the most wonderfully connected people, I mean connected to the source within, connected to who they are, struggle and kick and scream about doing the human bit. I mean, I laugh because I was exactly the same. It was easy doing the other side of it. Actually staying in your human body and doing it within the human body and the human life and everything that goes with it, it was always the hardest part. And yet it's the final part, and it has to be to become the embodiment of your raised consciousness and shifted perception, and masters of your reality and co-creators of your reality. You have to do the human bits. So this channel is all about doing it as a human being. I never knew it was going to be that way. I never set out and planned it that way, but the channel itself has become a template for that. A template for getting into the conscious quantum heart, the quantum consciousness of who you are, the multidimensional you, the unified you, the 0 point field you. This is what the whole channel is. And it's evolved in that because I've evolved into that. And I've been very careful over the years that the videos I've put out have been put out specifically, not as, like I say, a promotional thing, or not as a self-serving thing, or not as a knee-jerk thing, but they've always gone out specifically when they went out for a specific reason at that time. You know, and sometimes I had to avoid being on camera in the early years. I thought, no, you know, I don't want to bring my own stuff onto camera, my own, you know, stuff on there. I had to be very careful, and as time's gone on, as my energy has become much more unified and balanced, and, you know, those stepping towards becoming conscious myself and putting out, let's say, a bigger transmission than I was putting out, even, let's say, more mindful of that. So just to summarize, because I don't want to go any further, you know, we are in really pretty much very unusual times where there's vast possibilities and potential of that soup, that cosmic soup of frequency and vibration flowing in around us, all different directions. The way to ensure that you align, if you like, with those that are genuine and from the heart, aligning with the frequencies that are genuine and from the heart, is to align from that perspective yourself, from your heart and from your purity. It's interesting for me, I've said a number of years now, because obviously I'm clairaudient and as well as many other things. There are some channels, you know, I could listen to, and it's absolute bliss, you know, listening to them and the frequency they're coming from, and others I can't listen to more than 10 seconds because I can hear the noise of where it's coming from and the distortion. I can hear if it's coming from their pain body. I can hear, and there's no criticism in that, but I can hear it. I can hear if it's coming from some downloaded, programmed, negative, extraterrestrial thing that they've looped into. I can hear if it's coming from an archetypal consciousness thing they've looped into. I can hear exactly where it's coming from. It takes me about 10 to 30 seconds, and then I just switch it off because it's like, oh, it's making a noise. It makes a noise, you know. It's not that triggers me. It actually makes a noise. It's uncomfortable, like dragging your long fingernails down glass, because it's a clash, like a clash of frequency and energy. But the people that watch that may not hear the clash of frequency and energy. They will align with it because something in them aligns with that particular transmission, whether it's a distorted negative transmission or an amazing, wonderful, heartfelt transmission. Again, it will align to where they're at. Sometimes it will worsen something within them. Sometimes it will illuminate something within them. Sometimes it will shift something within them, because everyone, in a way, is frequency specific. They do not have to remain within that frequency, although some will, because we are in extraordinary times where we can alter those frequencies. They're fluctuating, you know, just as the harmonic, you know, resonance on the planet, Schumann resonance is, you know, fluctuating all the time. It's fluctuating and going higher than it ever did before, a bit like the waves on the beach, you know, racing up, drawing back, racing up even higher than they were. You know, there's this fluctuation. I mean, if you think what that is, look, it's a wave taking place, and that's, you know, all the way through this I'm talking about wave bands. So in closing, I hope, and that's obviously why I was drawn to say transmission, is that you are realizing that you are transmitters yourself, and that you are aligning with transmissions of energies all around you. And I hope that this video is transmitted on frequency levels that you are finding helpful, you are wishing to hear or feel, that helps you move through, let's say, to refine where your resting state or where your frequency state wishes to be at this specific now point in your consciousness. On that note, I'll love you and leave you. Hopefully that wasn't too woo-woo or too you know, waffling on. Look after yourselves, take care, loads of love, bye.